I think so. Thanks for the thing. Your fault. I guess to see it apply, what's right. How many things look up here? Such as like way. No, I probably also. I will have something. Are you really stuck with
Meeting of the county commission will come to order. We will start our meeting with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item today is the approval of the minutes. We have a motion to approve. So moved. Second. Mr. Ross, Mr. Rusty. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yeah. Then the, is there a motion that is approval of the order of agenda, or are there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to, under the county administrator, the Grand Forks County Space Utilization Study, I would like to have that item B moved up to a 6C.
What?
6C,
C?
as in Charles.
Right, is that a motion?
Yes, it is. I'll second.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Right, the consent agenda consists of bills, employee status changes, overtime, the April financial report, a bond for check reissue, and 2 special event permits.
Mr. Chairman, the special event permits are.
So they're not consent agenda.
They are not.
All right, so that was 1 through 6 for 5 and 6. So the 60 is separate items. So any do I have a motion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Peach, second by Commissioner Hagan, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right? Passed. So the special event permits, we can take them one at a time then, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to look at item 6? If so, do I have a motion for the MMW hospitality event?
So moved.
Mr. Ross, Mr. Ruskus. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. The next event then is Good Friends in Larimore. Is there I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rusty, Mr. Peach. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Then 6C will be the space studies, that's it. That's where we're going now?
Yep.
Okay. And who's here?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sean Senesko with JLG Architects, joined by my colleague Tracy Georgie with JLG as well. Thank you in advance for allowing us the opportunity to talk a little bit about the space utilization study. I'd like to talk a little bit about our process to start, and then I'd like to get into some of the opportunities that we identified. Certainly won't have the time today to go through the entire packet. We should have copies of those two at your desk. But I'd like to highlight some of the bigger opportunities that we've identified, and obviously take questions. So, just to talk a little bit about our process, we started at the end of January, early February, where we interviewed in a couple different meetings, all the departments within the county office building, courthouse, and the sheriff's department as well. We then conducted tours of all of the departmental spaces in those three facilities as well. And that was really information gathering opportunity. It allowed us to hear how the departments operate, how they use their spaces, potential for growth. So we're being a little bit future thinking. And it was also allowed us to hear about how the spaces work, how they don't work. Like I said, it was really that information gathering stage. After we conducted those initial interviews and had a chance to see all the spaces, we went back and started to develop some ideas. We worked closely with Mr. Ford and Ms. Leon on some potential ideas and opportunities. Continue to evaluate some opportunities and priorities, and then we're here today. So over the course of the last handful of months, we've been working on the study. I'd like to talk about a couple of the opportunities specifically. Again, we might not have time to go through everything, but some of the larger opportunities we like to highlight. I'll reference some pages in the study, but it's over 50 pages, and so we won't have time to go through everything. But I will reference specific pages if you would like to follow along. Really high level. After we did our information gathering, we had a chance to kind of reflect on what we saw and we heard. And I think the biggest area of focus or attention that we identified was in the courthouse specifically. And if we break that down, the two maybe biggest departments that we saw as needing to address space considerations were clerk of courts and the state's attorney's office. So just to give you kind of a sense, when we were going through our tours of the various departments, just from an initial observation of the different spaces, visibly, those two departments, clerk of courts and state's attorney, were the ones that stood out as being in need of the most attention from a space standpoint. Just when you walk through the space, you could just understand how staff were using it, the spaces that they were in. You could tell that there was some attention needed to those departments. After we had a chance to look at some of the data and numbers, that confirmed our initial suspicions. And so I'll throw a couple of numbers at you that are important. The clerk of courts right now has about 116 square feet per person. 116 square feet per occupant of that office space. That was by far the lowest square foot per occupant in all of the county departments that we evaluated. State's attorney was was also one of the lower ones. I think the state's attorney's was at 197 square feet per occupant. Just to give you something to compare that to, if we add up all the other departments in the county office building as an example, the rest of that would be about 250 to 275 square feet per occupant. And that comes with an asterisk. Not every department should be evaluated the same. Certain needs in storage or other things are needed, and so it's not fair to compare exactly. But I think the discrepancy there between clerk of courts, state's attorney, and the other departments was a big red flag to us. And so we first looked at what are some ways that we could provide relief to those departments and look at their spaces specifically. If you want to follow along in the packet, I'm looking at opportunities 1 and 2, and that's on pages 8 through 13. So the first opportunity that we investigated was how do we, because we know, at least it's not inexpensive and it's not easy to add another floor on the courthouse. So outside of that, we looked at how do we create opportunities to expand space in the courthouse. The first opportunity that we looked at was moving the state's attorney's office out of the courthouse and into the county office building. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that in an ideal scenario where we have the square footage, it makes sense for the state's attorney's office to be in the courthouse. That goes unsaid. But again, with the confined square footage in the courthouse, we looked at everything within the courthouse, identified that as being an opportunity to create more space within the courthouse without adding on, right, an addition or another floor, if you will. I think it's important to also point out in the courthouse, there are other significant space issues with the day-to-day operations of the courthouse. I'll give an example. There's no opportunity for counsel or clients to meet. So like right now, they're doing that in the lobby on a bench where there's coming and going of all the different people that are using the courthouse. Just the general lobby and how people are accessing and using that space within the courtrooms. Everyone's using the same spaces. The counsel, clients, press, jury, they're all using kind of the same spaces, and it's not enough space inherently. So I don't want to skip over that. So if I back up, we looked at moving state's attorney, or suggest moving the state's attorney over to the county office building. By doing that, it opens up the second floor to move the reports up to occupy the state's attorney's space on the second floor. We would still want to maintain, and we recommend in the reports, that there be a space still established in the courthouse for the state's attorney's office. That could take on a lot of different forms. It could be hotel office space, it could be office space for specific personnel. It could be conference rooms where they can meet with clients, it could be file storage, it could be any number of things, but there still needs to be a touchdown space, if you will, in the courthouse if this scenario were to unfold. By moving clerk courts up to the second floor, what happens is we open up square footage then on the first floor. And what that will allow us to do is to improve some of those circulation things that I talked about, add conference space for counsel and for clients, some of those programs and uses to enhance some of the faults of the current courthouse, if you will. I back up the idea for moving the state's attorney's office over to the county office building. We studied two options. One is a scenario in which the public health moves out of the third floor north wing. That could be a potential opportunity for state's attorneys to move into their space. The other opportunity is currently on fourth floor and fifth floor. Northeast Human Services occupies all the fourth floor and a portion of fifth floor. With some creating some efficiency within Northeast Human Services, and moving some departments around on fifth floor, for options within the state's attorneys over the fifth floor space. I think it's worth mentioning, and State's Attorney Wamstead and I have had a conversation about this. And I mentioned in an ideal scenario, we're probably not moving state's attorneys out of the courthouse. And she shared with me some concerns that she had, which I think are important to share with you all. It's not a perfect scenario. One of the concerns in moving the state's attorney's office over to the county office building is safety and security. Having attorneys have to walk across the street and feel safe and secure in doing that. There's also some logistical things, moving file storage, right? It could be days where attorneys have many files that are having to be transported over. And we don't disagree with any of those. Those are things that would have to be addressed in this potential scenario. But I think that's worth mentioning. A couple things that would be really important that we have to solve this scenario. So that is one of the opportunities we wanted to highlight. Again, you can read more about it in the reports. That's opportunity, it's called opportunity 1, opportunity 2, pages 8 through 13. The other opportunity we wanted to highlight was the study and the investigation that we did for the sheriff and the sheriff's department. That's on pages 14 through 17. When we first studied, when we first started our study, we evaluated 3 options for the sheriff after initial meeting and information gathering. So those 3 options that we initially studied was moving the sheriff into the county office building, moving the sheriff into the juvenile detention center, and then an option where the sheriff occupies a new build or new construction, or occupies a existing building that can be renovated for use. So those were the 3 options that we initially looked at. I know there's been further conversation, there's a task force that have looked at the sheriff's office specifically and made some recommendations or put some ideas out. But I did want to just kind of review from our perspective the different options for the sheriff's department. So the first option, which was moving the sheriff into the county office building. At a really high level, what we looked at and what we found as being potential conflicts were a few things. First, a separate entry would have to be established for the sheriff if they were to operate the county office building. The sheriff brings in evidence, firearms, ammunition, things of that nature. Items that you don't want necessarily crossing paths with the general public or the citizens of Grand Forks that are using the services of the county on a daily basis. So establishing a separate entry would have to be done. As you all know, there's only 4 entries into the existing county office building. The 2 main entries on the east and the west, which wouldn't be ideal. The others are on the north and south. So we looked at both options of the sheriff occupying the north side, the south side, first floor. South side doesn't work because there's some inherent departments that just can't move off the first floor. Tax equalization, county recorder, those have to stay. So that limited us to the north side. We looked at programmatic functions on the north side. There's some infrastructure that just can't be moved there, at least not easily or inexpensively. The loading dock and the receiving areas on the first floor. And then one of the major mechanical rooms is also on the first floor. Those spaces would have to stay. So the remaining square footage that would be available, we'd have to move human services out. And the sheriff would be able to occupy about 4,800 square feet on the first floor. The sheriff ideally needs about 13,000 square feet. And so take that 4,800 square feet. You have to supplement that with additional square footage elsewhere in the building. And that would likely have to be at 2 stories or more away from their existing space. So you're separating that department, which didn't seem intuitive and didn't seem ideal for a long-term solution for the sheriff. The other, I think, important factor to highlight is parking. Certainly for sheriff staff, using the ramp could work out. But for sworn personnel having to access patrol vehicles, there's not a great scenario for parking. I mentioned human services would have to move on the first floor in that scenario for sheriff to move in. And so there's a little bit of logistical and cost issues with that. You're having to move one department out, will cost money. You have to move a department in, which costs money. So you're doubling up on costs. And so for those reasons, and we state in the report that moving the sheriff into the county office building is maybe the most cost-effective solution, but it's certainly not the best for the long-term ability for the sheriff to serve the county of Grand Forks in a positive way. And so that was kind of the least ideal opportunity for us. So it took a while explaining that, but that was kind of our thought process and what's in the report on our recommendation that the sheriff likely should move into the county office building. The next option was juvenile detention center. Juvenile detention center is around 19,000 square feet. So from a size standpoint, it could fit certainly the basic functions of the sheriff's office. The juvenile detention center is a aging building that hasn't necessarily been maintained over the course of the last plus decade. And so that option comes with some initial inherent cost updates just to get the building back up to a useful function. In addition to that, you have to renovate the floors to allow the sheriff to occupy it in a feasible manner. So there's some inherent cost issues in just updating that building. And then obviously with existing buildings, you're having to work within the confines of what's there. So a very specific structural grid, very specific floor to floor heights, all of that could work, but is it ideal? It's maybe not ideal. But certainly I think maybe a better solution than moving the sheriff into the county office building. It's also important to note that moving the sheriff into the juvenile detention center, the issue of parking, I think still presents itself. There's not great parking. There's a garage there with a few bays, but not ideal parking standpoint. And then, of course, the last option, which we studied very high level, was just moving the sheriff into a new building or purchasing an existing building and renovating, which obviously would be the most expensive option, but it also would allow for the best long-term success, I would say, for the sheriff being able to customize the space that they use and how they plan to use that space. So those are kind of the three options that we looked at for sheriff and identified some opportunities to report on that. Certainly there's additional opportunities that we looked at for most of the departments. One thing I will note is that we have pages listed as opportunity 1, opportunity 2, 3. There's no priority placed on those opportunities. There's just sequencing within the reports. And so just because something is opportunity 6, for example, doesn't mean it's more or less important than other opportunities. So I wanted to make that clear. Certainly, and we've talked to Mr. Ford and Ms. Leon about this. It'd be very challenging for the county to fulfill all these opportunities. And so from a cost standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, I think what I'll leave you with is we took the approach of we brought a third-party perspective to this study to maybe provide some outside perspective and hopefully help kind of evolve the conversation on what's needed from a space standpoint. And so by no means are these all recommendations that need to be done and done fast, but I think it's tools and a chance for the county commission to kind of evaluate different departments and what the real important things in the future moving forward might be. So with that, I guess I'll pause and take any questions that the group might have. Thank you.
Questions?
I just think you need some time with it to,
Yeah.
just need some time with it to digest.
I guess I would have one question. So you met with the department heads and you went on the tours. Did you have any further communication with the department heads? Like, hey, we did these changes. What do you think? How does this work for your department?
Yeah, we followed up maybe with email after a few of them, but there was no follow-up meetings to discuss any of the recommendations with department heads. We really did utilize the support of this and for any kind of recommendations.
I think we're gonna have to have an administrative services committee meeting on this. Yeah. If Attorney Wamsit, would you like to address some of these issues today? Because you and I have had a conversation about it. I think some of these things should be brought up at the beginning. You wanna take over? All right, go ahead.
I don't want to interject. Were you done? Or,
I am done unless there's any other questions. So.
Well, so first I put together a little presentation. I know, over the years, this idea of our office moving to the county office building has come up a number of times. At various times, I or my predecessor might have had some conversations with, some of you, albeit brief. And so I thought, now would be an appropriate time to kind of more delve into this a bit deeper and more fully explain kind of some of the thoughts of our department that we've had over the years when this suggestion has been brought up. just as a point of clarification, I know Sean had mentioned that they had followed up with some departments with an email or whatever. I essentially learned of this recommendation at the same time as all of you. I spoke with Mr. Ford about 20 minutes before all of you received the report. And so it's very new to me as well, and I'm trying to digest the same as well. However, you know, like I said, it isn't a new suggestion that's been brought up, and so I thought it would be helpful to kind of go through a little bit of our office's position. So, to cut to the chase, our office's position is, yes, we are packed in like sardines, just as he's identified, and we appreciate that his analysis shows exactly how we feel. With that said, we're functioning properly and adequately where we're at. Our office would rather be jammed in like sardines and in the courthouse than to be relocated to the county office building. And I'll kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of go through what some of our concerns are and why we feel that way. Because I think it's important for all of you, and you make your decision on the recommendations from this report as well. Before I delve into it too much, I just wanted a couple points of clarification. The report, one of the questions at the initial meeting that was posed is, what's your current head count and what's your 5-year anticipated? And the report kind of makes it like we anticipate adding 4 staff. Just for clarification, that is not our plan at all. I think the reference to 4 people is that currently, as you're all aware, the county provides funds to CBIC to provide our victim advocacy services. That is 4 staff. In the past, the county has debated, is it better to contract with CBIC? Is that a better bang for our buck, or to just employ those people ourselves? So with the question, that's what I anticipated, if any change. Not that I'm requesting that or seeking that, but that would be the only potential change I would foresee in the next 5 years, that may look a little bit different as far as who the employer is, but it doesn't change the head count in any way. So it wouldn't be that we need more office space or anything like that. The other point of clarification I wanted to make is that I think some of the items that were identified for the courthouse's needs is more conference space for attorney-client consultations. And while I completely agree with that, you know, if money and space were no issue, yes, we would certainly have more space for that. But just a point of clarification, I think from the presentation today, it was conveyed that there's no conference space. There is conference space. It's just the goal would be, it would be nice to have more conference space in the courthouse. So it's certainly something that the current courthouse setup provides, just maybe not as abundantly as our wish list may be. Then the other point of clarification I just wanted to note is that the reason that I don't foresee an expansion of our staff in the next 5 years is that I monitor our caseloads quite closely throughout the year, and over the last several years, our caseloads have had some peaks and valleys, but for the most part, been pretty consistent. So I don't see a trend, absent something changing, that we'll be in a rush to add people in the next 5 years. So just to kind of briefly go through, our office has been subject to space studies that the county commission has hired a number of prior times, as many of you are aware. There was the 2016 space study, and that assessed the courthouse and the COB. ICON established a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. Some recommendations from that 5-year plan were adopted and implemented, which was a good change. The 10-year plan relevant to our office included the plan of moving our office into the 3rd floor of the old jail, or what's now juvenile detention. Because that building is connected to the courthouse, no objection from our office. If that's the way to get the job done to meet the needs of everybody, I think it's a reasonable option. That study also explored the costs and logistics of building a new building at various locations across the street as well. Then there was the 2020 study, which was more narrowly tailored to just the courthouse and the needs of the sheriff's department, emergency management, and juvenile detention. Now, that study considered essentially various options for building a building and the costs of those various options. So our office has always been included in these studies because we are so tightly in our space, like this study has identified. And I think the idea is if the county were to look to build a building, it would make sense to include us since we are tightly situated. With that said, it's not like we can't operate in the space where we're at. And so I think in response to the 2020 study, many of you were on the board, but my recollection was that's when the board decided to move forward with home rule and seek the sales tax to help pay for some of these building needs of the county, the jail, juvenile detention, and other departments that would potentially be included. Obviously, as we all know, the sales tax failed, and so that's why the board looked to Plan B, which was to combine the juvenile detention center into the jail expansion project. That wasn't the initial. And so I just think it's important to note that the Board of Commissioners did have a plan. It's just that they fell short of those votes to execute on the plan that they had. It's not that necessarily it was neglected or not considered in any way. Then there's this 2024 space study. Our department is identified in 2 opportunities as Sean kind of outlined for the board. And so one thing I think is noteworthy is the report identifies removing the state's attorney's office from the county office or from the courthouse as the only possible solution for alleviating current space needs in the courthouse. I don't believe it's the only possible solution. After I received a copy of the report, I reached out to Mr. Seneschal to make sure I'm understanding what their recommendations were and plans were. And I posed that question. Why is our office the only one? Why aren't other areas of the courthouse able to relocate? And I'm not sure that question has really been well vetted or really thought through. And I think there all are alternatives that would work for the relevant parties. I fully understand the needs that are identified. You know, I think their report identifies the clerk's office doesn't have much natural sunlight. They're jammed in like sardines, just like we are. There's a need for the extra conference space. I completely understand and agree with this. However, I think it's also worth noting that we're a public entity that needs to live within our means. And a lot of what the recommendations are is going to be an additional cost to the county. And so I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. So if I move on to my next slide, to outline some of the concerns of our department, first and foremost, with absolute no doubt, is the safety of our staff and the public and the people that we serve. Every day our staff deals with a particularly violent and dangerous population. I'm sorry, it's just something that's very important to me, that they have a safe space to conduct their jobs. Obviously not all the folks we prosecute are dangerous and violent, but many of them are. And our staff deals with it at the front desk. Our attorneys deal with it, in court and in the courthouse and, outside the courthouse building as well. And typically with the folks that we prosecute, if they're upset with somebody, it's typically the prosecutor that's asking the jury to convict them. And the other person is the judge that eventually sentences them. And so in my opinion, of all the people in the courthouse that are in harm's way, it's our attorneys employed by the county and the judges employed by the state. And I'm afraid that not enough emphasis was placed on the safety of our own employees in this study. Just to cite a few examples for you in the last few years. Our office had an attorney that literally was chased up the stairs of the courthouse by a defendant. A law enforcement officer was a witness in the courthouse on that day, saw this happening, and chased after this particular individual. And our attorney got to our office, slammed the door behind her so that she wasn't harmed in any way by this individual. We've also had attorneys that have been accosted on the sidewalk outside of the courthouse. Their family members have been mentioned by these individuals that have accosted them on the sidewalk. So it's not just comments are thrown out on whim. Research has been done and efforts have been made to affect the safety or security of our employees. And so I think it's important that our office is located in a building with a deputy at the door and a metal detector at the door for these reasons. And these are just some of the examples in the last few years that have happened in our office. And so not only is it our attorneys and staff that I think safety should be a top priority, but we all day, every day, work with victims of crime and witnesses of those crimes. And it isn't unusual for a defendant not to be really thrilled with those folks either. If they had testified against them or anything like that. Well, I appreciate the consideration for a touchdown space for our office in the courthouse. With the vast number of cases that we deal with and the number of victims that we deal with, I don't think a mere touchdown space would be adequate for us to serve the needs and safety of those individuals. We sometimes have trials where the court orders that witnesses are sequestered. In other words, they can't talk to each other. And so we can't put all the witnesses in the same room and just call them out to testify. We have to find multiple locations to place all of these witnesses while they're waiting to testify throughout the courthouse. And so I think that's an item to consider as well. Beyond the safety of our staff and the public, I think it's important to note the logistics of having our office in this building. So we still operate on a paper file system. As much as I wouldn't like to, we're kind of stuck where we're at. And the reason is that the state of North Dakota offers a case management system to prosecutors that integrates with the court system, with law enforcement system, and the criminal history reporting system. That is offered to counties free of charge. And it's a huge time saver for our staff to utilize that case management system. If we didn't utilize that case management system, we'd be looking at adding more staff. And just last Thursday, we had a meeting with the state where they were looking to upgrade this system so that we could go paperless, or hopefully go paperless. Last Thursday, they informed us that with their contractor, things weren't working out and they canceled that contract. So we're back at square one with our same system that doesn't allow us to go paperless. Literally, our attorneys push files or shopping cart looking carts of files to court. So it's not like something you can throw under your arm. And these files contain an immense amount of confidential information. Victim addresses, phone number, other confidential information pertaining to the victim. We also have criminal history records included in every file, which includes confidential FBI information, such as if a defendant is currently on the federal government's terrorist watch list, that's contained in our file. Social security numbers, criminal justice intelligence information. The list goes on and on. Obviously, not something that we want to be out on the sidewalk toting in a grocery cart back and forth multiple times every day. I think it's also important to note that our attorneys are in court literally all day, every day. Mornings and afternoons, 5 days of the week, every week. The court has a dedicated judge every week to the master calendar rotation, or caseload. Those are all cases affecting our office, with the exception of a very small amount of municipal court cases. There's also another judge dedicated to the juvenile master calendar, which is the bulk of that is our office. And that's not to mention if there's a trial or more than one trial going on in that particular week as well. So no attorneys are in court as much as a prosecutor's office is in court. And so just to kind of give you a general idea of the frequency and the number of court appearances, I ran the calendar, or our office ran the calendar from yesterday's court appearances. And there was, I believe, 86 files in which our office made court appearances on throughout the morning and afternoon. So you can imagine if we were located in a different building, heading to the courthouse for 86 different cases, toting 86 different case files across the street with us. Logistically, it just would not work. At any given time, our office has approximately 900 open files. That doesn't include files where there's active warrants out for somebody's arrest. That's just the files that we're actively prosecuting at any given point in time. So it would be very difficult for us to bring those files back and forth multiple times every day. The other reason I think is important for the board to consider is the financial aspect. So there's two opportunities that are identified in JLG's report. One is relocating the state's attorney's office to public health's current space. As many of you know, the city made a presentation to the city council a couple weeks ago, and they provided the cost estimate just to move public health down the street to the new building. And that's well over $12 million for a 30-year term. That's not counting the cost that it would cost our office to move into this building. And then, as we all know, if the court needs to retrofit our space for the clerks, the county is going to be paying it at a minimum a portion of that cost as well. Then the other option is relocating our office to Northeast 5th floor south. Obviously, Northeast is a paying tenant of the county, and so JLG estimates that's 8,600 square feet at their current rate of $16.35 per square foot is $140,000 a year. Now, I don't want to speak for Northeast, nor do I want to speak for Mr. Ford, but it's my understanding that what Northeast had shared is there's maybe a misunderstanding with the architects in relation to their space. They are actually looking to expand their staff. And the report does note that their 5-year plan is to expand 30 additional employees. And it's my understanding that they do not wish to vacate the space on the 5th floor where the report identifies our office to move to. So I think, you know, obviously there's the domino effect of cost. These are just the initial price tag for the two alternatives. It doesn't take into consideration whatever needs to be retrofitted to our space and then retrofitting the courthouse to the needs that exist there. And all of this. When our office doesn't even want to move, that's a big price tag to swallow. When our office doesn't even want to move. And I think there's a need to prioritize. Some of the needs of the county when we do have a financial situation that it doesn't allow us to. Get everything that we want. My impression of the initial meeting we had with the architects was more of a brainstorming session, like. What would you like that you don't currently have? So yeah, a lot of thoughts were thrown out about it'd be great to have more sunlight, it'd be great to have more conference space for attorney-client meetings. All of those things are great, but I think the task of this board is gonna be to prioritize what's most important. And I think obviously, in my opinion, what's most important is the safety of the public, the safety of our employees. There is no pressing need to make any changes at the courthouse today. I think some of the items identified was that the court potentially would be asking for an additional judge at some point in time in the future. That we'd like to have a larger lobby space, we'd like to have more conference space. All of those are good things, but they need to be balanced with the costs and ramifications of following JLG's recommendations. And there was, in the report, there really was no consideration for the safety of our staff, the safety of the victims of the crimes, or the witnesses to the crimes. I also think it's important to note that I come before you today not with just Haley Wamstead's position. This isn't just my opinion. This is the opinion of my predecessor and others in our office. This is the concern of a lot of employees in our office as well. Obviously, when you're accosted on the sidewalk, you're not really thrilled about having to run across the street multiple times every day just to do your job and have that potential happen. And I also think it's important to note that after I received this case study that we did last Thursday, I reached out to the Association of Counties because they're always a good resource for us just to kind of see how things are happening across the state. I inquired if they were aware of any other large full-time state's attorney's offices that weren't located in the courthouse or in a building connected to the courthouse. They were not. And in fact, when I visited with the executive director of the North Dakota Association of Counties, who also happens to be a former prosecutor here in North Dakota, his position was absolutely not. The state's attorney's office needs to be in the courthouse building or connected to the courthouse building. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I think that's why, that's how it is in other counties across the state, as he noted as well. You know, it just doesn't logistically make sense, and it just doesn't make sense to cost the taxpayers. The initial price tag cited by the city is $12 million for a department that doesn't want to move, and there's greater ramifications if they in fact move. And that's just the initial price tag to move the one department, not to mention the domino effect of the others. At this point, I guess I can pause if there are any questions anybody has.
I've spoken to a former staff member, and that person was involved when the state's attorneys had to move across the street from here while they were remodeling or whatever it was. Were you on the staff at that time?
I was not, but I've heard stories.
Well, what the point was that there would be many state's attorneys hanging out in the courthouse in between hearings, because if you got a hearing at 2 o'clock, you can walk back to your office for 15 minutes, but if you're across the street following files, you can't be doing that. So the logistics of state's attorneys having to go over there and stay for hours was much more difficult than if they could go back to their office before the next hearing. So is that the experience you've heard from people?
Yes, just a big time suck and less efficient use of employees' time.
Yeah.
I believe that was a temporary situation, and I think the concern is if it was permanent, more attorneys would be needed just because of the time
Sure.
that it consumes just, you know, it doesn't seem far, but apparently it was a legitimate issue back then.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Ford.
my name's been dropped a few times, so I'd like to say a few things, that's all right. First of all, with our friends from JLG,
Mr. Ford.
yes, sir.
Second. Any commissioners have questions for Ms. Wamstead for?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Friends from JLG, my communication to them was based on the commission's communication in the meeting was. Come in as a third party, unbiased review and tell us how we can better use our office space, that was the instructions to them. Actually, so Tracy, Sean, the JLG team, they met with me and they said, here's our most substantive from our outside view. What we think are the biggest impacts where you can move things around. And they said it cringingly to me, and when I heard it, I cringed myself because we've talked about, I've been dealing with Northeast Human Services for 4 or 5 years now about their footprint and. I've had this discussion with Mr. Welty, Mr. Jones, Ms. Lomstead many times, but that was my stretch, they asked Mr. Senekos, I said. Should I follow up with Jeff McKinnon and Haley Lomstead? I said, no, let me talk to them first. Let me just let them know that this is what's in the report, this is the recommendation, that's what was there. So they did offer to, but I, as a colleague, offered to. Reach out first and just give an FYI heads up, it was coming. I thought about asking or having this study presented at the June meeting. And so that everyone could have more time to look through it. I did not, I opted to ask for it to be presented today for 2 reasons. One was there's urgency with the impending sheriff move in the city, and the city's they've put some of their own plans on hold to hear our space study. And I was under the impression today there'd just be a presentation, JLG would say this, we came in, we talked, here's our thoughts. And that would be it, and then the commission would meet at a later time, after you digested it, you'd prioritize it, you'd hear all the concerns from any departments that are impacted. So it's not as if I was being a dictator and saying you will not talk to these people. It was, let me talk to them first, it's just going to be presented, and there'll be a chance for the commission to prioritize. And hear from concerns from department heads, so. Just so you all know, that's what was going on as we were trying to move through this study.
All right, any other comments or questions? Well. You know, this is I guess this hit our email yesterday or whatever it was. And
Would have been last Friday, sir.
I don't know what everybody else does with their day, but I've run a full-time practice too, and I skimmed it, but I could not study this thing at all. And I think we all need to take some time, have I guess administrative services, that'd be the appropriate committee. Because we all are part of that, and we could have a focus of just this thing for an hour or so. And then we can understand what's in there and what we can do and what we can't. Everybody agree with that? All right.
If I may, here, just
Go ahead.
the final comments. I think, State Attorney Lomstead said the best when, she said. It's up to the county commission to sort of prioritize the opportunities that we lay out. I just wanted to say, we're very intentional in the report that, I don't think the word recommendation comes up anywhere in the report, and that was intentional on our part. We wanted to lay out what we called opportunities for the commission to evaluate and the county to evaluate. You may deem some of these very relevant, some of them may not be relevant. Again, I think it was our goal and our task to give a third party perspective. So I wanted to make that clear that we're not recommending certain things, we're presenting opportunities. So just wanted to make that clear. And then also there's a lot of opportunities laid out in here that I hope you get a chance to review, because even though some of them are a little bit smaller, this space up to the 4th floor and what have you, they're still important to the people that it impacts. So anyway, thank you again for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, how are we going to determine the time for administrative services hearing?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, can I recommend waiting till the sheriff's office, RFI bids come in?
Oh, yes.
And those should be open on June 5th.
Okay, let's see what happens there and then. Then we can set a time. Good. All right. Ready to move on, everybody?
Yeah.
On these zone appointments, item 7.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, I'm Tammy Knudsen, Director of Grand Forks County Human Service Zone. I am here with respect to our zone board. In January, we did have a resignation. Jill Cormier resigned with our board at that time. We, my board and I had discussions with respect to where we go with that position, and that the board had asked that we look to secure an appointment that would be similar to what Ms. Cormier brought to the board, very similar with respect to her employment and her skills, that sort of thing. I did reach out to additional people with respect to that. We did receive 3 applications for the board position. I presented those to my board in April. And the board chose and recommended to all of you to appoint Kayla Hochstetler to the board. She would fill Ms. Cormier's position, which would expire December 31st of 2025. And they also approved, based upon the experiences of another applicant, Linda Olson, that she also be appointed to the board. So we would be adding a position to our board. So that would be, I would be asking for appointment for a 3-year term which would ultimately begin July 1st of 2024 and would go until July 2027. The board made a motion and vetted the 2 of them for that recommendation to all of you. So I would ask for your.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any discussion?
So
This
we're, sorry, clarification, we're replacing someone and adding an additional board person?
Yes,
And that's not a cost to the company.
Right.
no, that's for the board, advisory board for that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for waiting. Then, library director.
Good afternoon, my name is Brad Sherwood, I'm the president of the library board, and would like to thank you for inviting us here on this beautiful Tuesday. For you, it's a beautiful Tuesday, a normal commission meeting. For me, it is a work release from a landscaping job that my lovely wife has got going on down on 27th Avenue, where she is the designer and the foreman, and I am labor and finance, and so I appreciate the work release. Her name is Jolly, and she usually is, but she is the daughter of a farmer, and she also taught first grade for 35 years. And it was clear that this afternoon I was not being a good listener, and the next thing that could go into the ground would be me. So thank you very much. If she does call, this meeting lasted till 8 p.m. Thank you. But if you take a look, I believe there's a short PowerPoint, but there's also the brochure that library director Wendy Wendt passed out to you. If you'd like to just take a moment to go through the annual thing with the library, and if you have any questions, obviously we'd be more than happy to answer those. Lots of things have happened at the library here in 2023, and we just want to celebrate some of the highlights that have been going on. As you can tell from some of the graphics, it's very indicative of, if you have not seen it, it's very indicative of what we've got now on the second floor with the recent remodel of the children's department, with the Busy Bee and the nature logos that are there. But up on the screen, you can take a look. I'm not going to read all of this to you. However, I will read the quote there that you may not be able to see by Mr. Healy, that the most important asset of any library goes home at night, and that is the library staff, and that is very, very true to what we have here in Grand Forks. An exceptional staff that goes above and beyond every step of the way. There are two entities that are also very, very, I think we're ahead of ourselves PowerPoint wise. Yes, we have the Friends of the Library, which is a group of community volunteers that provide funding for special projects and special endeavors that happen at the library. And I won't take your time to read what they have done, but they're very, very active and very, very beneficial to the library. And then the next group on the next slide is the foundation. And the foundation has been very, very involved with Giving Hearts Day, and most recently helped the library purchase an outreach vehicle, a van, and you maybe have seen it around town, but it allows us to get to the corners of the county and provide what the library provides throughout our wonderful county. Also, the foundation is next working on, you can see there, the next thing that they're gonna go after is the completion of the Curiosity Lab, which will be happening hopefully within the next 12 months at the library. This time, while we go through some of the noteworthy things from 2023, I'm gonna turn it over to the library director, Wendy Wendt, and she, again, if you have questions at the end, please feel free.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you again. So I actually am going to only say a little bit about the noteworthy, and you can look through it. It's been 2023 was a very good year and very busy. A point of pride for me is we've won several awards in 2023. Our children's librarian, Erin, who many of you know, received the North Dakota Library Association's Librarian of the Year Award. And he not only is a wonderful librarian for us and offers so much programming for young people and just innovation up in the children's department, but he also shares his knowledge and is a source for librarians across the state, kind of with teaching and passing on knowledge, presenting at conferences and the like. So there's that, and then he's also given back. He was the treasurer for the North Dakota Library Association for nearly 10 years. So he really is a terrific librarian. Our another award that we received, Dr. Laura Munsky helps us out a lot and played a critical role in helping Erin reach out to different programming partners, especially throughout UND, the engineering department, to different departments to help bring in experts on STEM projects and to help. We will the first public library in the state to have first Lego League. So we've got, and they build motorized vehicles that have to go on a certain path. All very high tech. I don't know what they're doing, but it looks really cool. It's fun to watch. And then, so Dr. Laura Munsky won the a national award. I partner with my library award, which is a mouthful. I think they need to come up with something zippier next year. But anyway, she won that award and we were thrilled, had a little reception, and so well deserved because she's just such an asset in the whole community. And then just recently, so it's 2024 actually, but two of our librarians and one past librarian were recognized by the North Dakota Long-Term Care Association, which is the name. They have an annual, they have several awards, but our staff members won the Group Volunteer of the Year Award. And they were so surprised and honored. And there was a presentation here in Grand Forks. And then they went to Bismarck and there was a big celebration there that was very fancy. And they were so surprised by all the recognition. And we were so proud because they bring services on a regular basis to senior housing places. And one of the favorites is done by JC. She does a bingo that, a bingo game that the participants just love. And I don't know how she does the special bingo, but they love it. And, they're just a great blessing to this community as well. So we're very proud of that. But more important, and I'm so sad that Diane Knopf left because this was an issue that was near and dear to her heart. About us providing services out in the county, not just welcoming county members to the library, but we're going out. And we're doing a lot to go out in the community now that we've got our van. So we're in the Potato Bowl parade every year, but we started going to the Thompson parade, but that's only every other year. So then we decided, well, let's add Larimore to the mix. And so every other year we'll go to one or the other. But in addition, the children's department is going to be at the Northwood Old Fashioned Saturday, July 27th. And at the Grand Forks Air Force Base Summer Bash, August 16th. Larimore Days, again, July 20th. We're going to be there. Also, we're doing outreach in the county. So we've got a children's librarian who does outreach, and she has visited the Emerito School. And librarians have visited Thompson Elementary to summer reading program, if you will skip. And Central Valley School visited the library for a tour. So that's exciting. And then our outreach children's librarian also goes to 2 daycare centers in Thompson and then numerous ones in Grand Forks. And she's also open to more opportunities. So if you know of a daycare that needs some story time, especially out in the county, give me a jingle. Any questions?
Any questions? For either of them? All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sheriff's night.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the commission. I presented a written document for the commission to review today prior to the meeting. And hopefully some of you had a chance to look at it, but I'll paraphrase what was provided in that letter. Today, the sheriff's office comes to the commission requesting that the county commission recognizes 2024 as the 150th year anniversary of the Grand Forks County Sheriff's Office. Over the last about year, the sheriff's office, primarily Captain Joel Lloyd, has been doing some historical research regarding the sheriff's office, our founding, and what we've discovered is that historical information is not easy to come by regarding Grand Forks County. What we've been told by multiple people is that there was a significant amount that was lost during the flood of '97. Along that line, a lot of the information typically comes from residents, people's basements, loved ones, storage and whatnot. And a lot of that was lost, unfortunately, downtown area. So we were able to recover some information and do some checking historically. We did a lot of research online. I spent a few hours in the Historical Museum of Bismarck. Captain Lloyd and Chief Deputy Stromberg spent time in the Chester Fritz and the public library looking and reviewing information. And what we came up with, what Captain Lloyd came up with, along with some assistance from myself, is that there wasn't a clear definition on the establishment. And just to briefly paraphrase it, in 1873, Grand Forks County was a territorial area that was trying to be established. So they gathered a group of people and appointed them county commissioners, a sheriff, amongst other different positions. So they tried to work together for like 3 to 4 days and form government. And for apathy of the people, I believe is what it said, owing to the apathy of county officers and the sparse population, they dispersed no governing action was taken, no business was conducted, there was no information regarding if the sheriff appointed at the time did sheriff duties or not. There's literally no data on 1873 besides multiple different articles written documenting that they tried to organize, but it failed. So in the fall of 1874, the territorial governor, which I have written in here, is somewhere. John Burbank, territorial governor John Burbank came in 1874 and established Grand Forks County, and while doing that, he appointed Nicholas Hoffman as the sheriff of Grand Forks County. Well, Nicholas Hoffman was also the individual that was appointed in 1873 when they didn't form, or they weren't appointed. So, other things that we noted in this was, John Burbank, territorial governor, was very, obviously pivotal in recognizing, the area and appointing the sheriff in 1874 as Nick Hoffman. After his appointment, Nick Hoffman did conduct the duties of sheriff in 1874. And then the fall of 1874, the legislature for the territory went into session. And they were assigned to continue the organization, so they redrew some boundary lines and whatnot for the area known as Grand Forks County. Which if you guys have looked into it, we lost a lot of territory to Trail and some to Walsh and to Nelson. We were much bigger, but they reestablished the lines and reappointed county officials, including appointing different county commissioners. And they maintained the appointment of Nick Hoffman as the sheriff. So that was established late 1874. It was effective the date of signing, which was early 1875. I was kindly provided with a document from Miss Nelson with the actual first minutes that were recorded and documented on file of the county commission, March 2nd or 3rd, 1875. Is it Joel?
Yeah, it was early March 18.
Yeah, it was March 2nd or 3rd, 1870. Oh, it's my notes, March 2nd. 1875 was the first official minutes that were actually kept. To note, prior to that, those minutes being kept, it was documented that Nick Hoffman was carrying out the duties of sheriff in 1874. So with the establishment of that, with the territorial governor appointing Nick Hoffman as the sheriff in 1874, and the other historical documents that I laid out in this note, we would request today that the commission makes a motion to recognize 2024 as the 150-year anniversary of the sheriff's office of Grand Forks County. And with that, Captain Lloyd did come. He's been going at it since 6:30 this morning. But he's very passionate about this as well, so we're open and stand for any questions that the commission might have. I did hear that Bob might have been here, but we.
Yeah. I do make the motion.
Second. Any questions?
We'd love to answer questions, because man, we were loaded.
So in your research, did you find in
We got
there,
Nick coming up, we gotta get out of here.
and in your research, did you find that I was the sheriff in 1986? And then 2 terms in 2011.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, you.
And I'm the only one, I believe.
Yeah, because Major Ponder was also appointed.
Yeah, but he never read it, Brian, yeah,
Nope, so he was only a one-time interim,
yeah.
outside of him, I believe, you were the only other interim sheriff that we found. So,
So
Yeah,
when did
that's
they
true.
first have, when they appointed a sheriff, I suppose he had nobody to help him.
so there were constables.
Yeah.
We're still trying to determine what the definition of a constable was.
Uh.
But even as recent as 1952, when Sheriff Henry Halverson died in the line of duty on a transport to Bismarck. He was hauling a prisoner to the Bismarck State Pen, I believe it was on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And he had an assistant with him, I just found this recently, of course, Captain Lloyd had it for months. But he had an assistant with him that was an assistant to the jail. And I believe it was listed as a 16-year-old kid that helped him transport this prisoner to the state pen. So he perished in a head-on crash, went to pass the vehicle and head-on crash with another vehicle. I mean, God rest his soul, but thankfully, he was the only one that perished in that crash, was the sheriff, so.
What are you gonna do with this information that we're gonna put it like in a book or something that'd be?
So we, there's currently a fairly significant file that Captain Lloyd's putting together, gathering the information. Yeah, we're trying to gather as much information as we can if the motion is granted to go forward with it. We're gonna put out a press release requesting the public to come forward with any information if they have any. Burley County Sheriff's Office, they celebrated theirs last year. And they put out, they reached out on Facebook and they were very pleased with the amount of public information that it came. Just some conversations that we've had with people we ran into in the public. We've been sent some pictures and information from township books. Township books were a thing in the past. Maybe they still are. I don't know, but it's out there. The information is out there. I mean, I've had badges and homemade belt buckles mailed to me from California. From people not asking, just sent in.
Special deputy.
Yeah, and you just never know what you're gonna get. So we've had people contact us saying, hey, I found an old badge that was my grandpa's or great grandpa's, what can I do with it? Even though I'd love to have it. We let them know their options, so. Yeah, we love to get as much information as possible. One thing that we're really lacking is photographs of all of the sheriffs. So some early ones are readily available, and obviously the latter ones, it's the ones, 1900s to 1940s that are a little bit harder to find.
Mr. Page, you have a question?
I have a question, a comment. I just find it ironic that, in your letter, it states that Grand Forks County was completely organized and held their first meeting in 1875, when the state North Dakota didn't become a state until 1889.
Yeah.
And so it's just ironic that these counties and these townships
Yeah.
were getting more organized than it took for the state to be part of the union.
Yeah, and
Dakota Territory for a while.
Right.
correct, and that creates a lot of discussion. We've had many conversations with other entities, whether they're municipalities or counties. And what we've discovered in those discussions is, it is, even historians, it is very hard for some people to establish a date or a year time frame based off of what information they're able to gather and what information that they have second or hand from farmers. I mean, it's a long time ago, but it's only 150 years, right? Like there's people whose family members aren't that far removed and they have stories from back then. So some of it is readily available, and what the historians have all told us is, hey, this is the information that you have to base it off of. Make a decision and go with it in some way till the establishment of the actual state. So, and we do recognize that the state wasn't established till then. But the county was established prior to that, and the sheriff was even established prior to the rest documents, so.
Thank you.
It's very intriguing, it's a rabbit hole that, boy, you could just, and you could just keep digging for days. And it's it's fun to know, it's good to know where you came from.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
We have a motion.
Yeah, did you want to finish it? 'Cause we get voted. Oh, I was just gonna ask you, did you see the picture in that book that I received of the sheriff?
I did,
Okay.
and Captain Luke had that one, of course.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Any other tough questions for the sheriff? Otherwise, we will vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
You got pins.
It'll be interesting to see what else you come up with.
Give them the pins.
Yeah, thank you. The only other comment I'll make is regarding the space utilization study.
Oh,
I was gonna provide some comments, but as long as department heads are able to comment during the special meeting, I'll save it until then.
yeah,
That's fine. Okay, all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, he's got pins.
If you objected to it, we were in a lot of trouble.
I already got mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
oh, what do you got? Cool.
Just had a motion, you already got pins made.
Captain Lloyd be efficient.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Very cool. My kids are gonna fight over, and I might just take another one.
You need more than one.
1, 2, 3.
It'll be
You
better.
have mints? You have something to do?
I do
with
not have crickets,
that?
got some culvert bolts in the.
Perfect. That's what I've always wanted.
Well, a few things for the board. Sorry, there's a lot of items here, but, this is all great progress. First item I would ask for consideration is we had two projects that were selected for the Flex Fund. And one is that one we're pushing really hard on paving the Trail County line. The second one is, a structure replacement project, a mile straight west of Gilby. And that one we're slated to construction next year, however, it'd be good to get going on permitting and engineering this year. My question for the board is, well, we will need to hire a consultant engineer to help us with that. And that is part of the grant, the 80-20 split. But we need to procure a consultant engineer for that, so. The way my opinion would be is there's two ways to do it. We can issue an RFP and go through the selection process, or we can just pick one. It's up to the county to decide how we would like it to procure that. The other project on, with Trail County, we just selected KLJ because Trail County uses that for everything. Unless they have to do an RFP, they use KLJ for everything, but so we just went along with that one, but this one we could go with someone else. If we do a selection committee, I would ask for at least one official to be on that review process.
Or all jumping up and down.
Yeah.
I don't know if we do necessarily have to do a selection committee. If we don't have to, then it maybe it'd be more effective just to pick one.
My understanding, we do not
Okay,
have to with RFP.
I think we just pick one.
I move we pick one.
I'll second the motion, pick one.
Well. What are you asking me to do, right? This one, or this one?
Just select a consultant engineer.
Yeah.
And once we have one selected, then they'll submit scope and fee, and then we'll go through that process, and
Alright,
we do have to send it to the state to review as well.
but you don't have any. You don't have any names to put forward today. On the consultant.
I could put together a list, and I have a couple that would be good to deal with.
Okay, what are the wording for the board? How should we proceed?
Well,
We
Mark
made a
made a
motion to
motion.
pick one.
Pick one.
You said-
We have a motion and a second, motion is like,
Yeah.
just to pick one.
Oh.
Yeah.
I missed that term, so I'm gonna get you down there. All right, who's second?
It would be Kim.
All right. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's passed.
Who picks?
Look, thought it's you.
Okay.
You got this, Nick.
Okay. You. The next item for consideration is, the township assistance grant that we received for that gravel in Michigan Township. Board remembers, we did bid it out, they came in high, we rejected them last meeting. However, we finally got the contract from the state. From the state to the, state county agreement. Staff have reviewed, there are a few things of concern, but I think we can work them out for good, like all the contracts have to be reviewed by the state. The contractor has to agree to some non-discrimination language, which none of these, I don't see any of these as being a major issue or hurdle. There are some insurance requirements, liability insurance the county has to have. I haven't heard back from NIDRF yet on that one, I'm waiting. I don't think that's gonna be a problem. If it is, I'd certainly come back to the board, but these dollar amounts, I think, are certainly within our realm of coverage already, to my knowledge.
My goal here would be to utilize, and of course with approval from the state. Utilize our contract that we obtained from the 3 contractors we selected for providing gravel. County would provide the blading and the traffic control signage. And then, but we would also have to have a supplemental agreement that the contractor agrees to these other terms that the state just brought to our attention with this contract. I think that's something we can work out fairly easily. With that, I guess I would ask for approval of the contract and chairperson and auditor's signature.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Rust, Mr. Rusted. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you. The other contract we have for consideration is the flexible transportation grant program from state of North Dakota with Grand Forks County. This is for the paving of Trail County line. This is a very similar agreement, similar language as the township, similar requirements. That project is out for bid right now already. It's being advertised. We do have good interest in it already, I'm told. And we opened bids on May 30th, 31st. Yeah, just in time, just barely in time to get it in the packet. Hopefully everything goes well, you can get in the packet for the first meeting in June. This language, that again, is some of this language you weren't expecting. Just for the board's awareness, we already did issue an addendum. So we addended the proposal that's being advertised right now to include this language that the contractor agrees with. And again, it shouldn't be a problem. This is standard non-discrimination language every state contract has, so shouldn't be anything new for the contractors to agree to. And with that, I would ask for approval and chairman's signature and auditor's signature on the contract.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval.
Second. Mr. Peach, Mr. Rusted. Any questions for Mr. West? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah.
Next item is the rebid of our County 3 Emery Avenue culvert extensions. We did bid this out last time. We rejected bids because the bond was messed up. So we rebid it. We got 3 bids this time, which was interesting. First time we only had 1. However, the Schmitz Inc. was a little bid and they were the only interested party last time as well too. So we have a great relationship with that contractor. Everything went well. And we are budgeted appropriately. And I would ask for approval of that bid and chairman and auditor's signature on the contract.
So moved. Seconds.
Mr. Ross, Mr. Seconds. Oh, you're Mr. Rusted. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah.
Thank you. Next item is our Northwood shed, which is up for rehabilitation. This project, what I would ask for is, at this point, is the ADM elevator has preliminarily agreed to sell us a quarter or 0.24 acres of land immediately on the west side of the shed for $4,000. And I'm hoping in the next couple weeks, we have the final details of this stuff, like whose name is gonna sign, and I don't have that information as far as like a purchase agreement and stuff. They did not want earnest money. They said it's a small dollar amount when we show up the day of, we'll settle. But with that, I would ask for approval, how we sell it.
You all right? Give him a minute.
It's bad idea, it's though.
Yeah. So moved. You made a motion? Oh, second.
You can see another, so I'll move it.
So Who made the motion?
Mark choked it out and I second.
Mark made the motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead, understand that one. Who was seconded?
Kimberly said.
Kimberly seconded. And this is a contract you'll sign when it comes around. It's
Well,
very small.
my next request was is when the bidding document, or excuse me,
Uh,
when the closing documents are ready to go. That if the chairman could sign or the designated representatives when the time comes.
All right. So.
That was part of the motion.
Okay.
Oh, you can talk
Any other
now.
questions?
Right.
All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Passed.
So with that approval, I have the proposal ready to go, specs laid out, I've worked out things with. City of Northwood. Our own planning and zoning, unofficially with Lane, because we're in City of Northwood zoning requirements, but. Like septic requirements, things, make sure he's okay with it, East Central Water, so. Everything should be ready to go, so I'll get that. My goal is to start advertising here at the end of the week. And then. The requirements for these are a little bit longer, advertising minimum 21 days. Which is another week longer than highway projects, but, and then that first meeting of July, bring bids to the meeting, and hopefully sometime in the month of July, we can close. Hopefully this all, if we don't, then we'll just have to postpone it, it is what it is, but I'm trying to, we need to get done. So I'm trying to move things as fast as they can. But, yeah, okay, next one would be. The construction engineering agreement for. The BRP project, which is the Bridge on County Road 5, which we have bid, Swingen is the contractor. Those contracts have been approved, but this would be for KLJ to do the construction engineering for that project. We had a pre-job meeting yesterday, they want to start June 3rd. Which is great.
Yeah.
With that, I would ask for approval of the contract. And chairman signature and auditor signature and. I don't think. This is pretty signature. That's. From when they have.
Mr. Beach?
I would move approval.
Seconded by Commissioner Hagan. Again, any questions for Mr. West? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? That one passed.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. West, those two contracts, are they coming electronically? Both the, I've got one of them here.
The three DOT ones, the township one, the. Flex grant for Eagle at Trail County line. And this one should be in your email DocuSign. Those are the ones you've asked me and I said, hold off.
right,
Well, yeah, this one's been appearing on my email about 3 times and we haven't passed it yet, so are we?
Now you
This is what we're
explain.
talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
That helps.
I tried to tell them it's gotta go to the board, so. Right, yeah.
You'll have to keep track of the ones we need signed because. Who knows?
Just call my cell phone, you
Yeah.
know.
That sounds good.
Yeah, but there are, Mr. Chairman, there are numerous spots in that contract to sign, so. If you're questioning which ones, just call and ask,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Mr. Chair. As long as Nick is here, under new business, we had that gravel issue at the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about that now? Please?
But
14A.
Yeah.
Do you want
Oh, yeah,
to,
gravel on the south side of the correct center.
do you want to surmise what we did out there so far? And what the price was and what the bill was?
Yeah, so we had, Gowan Construction hauled in. Was 3 inches of crushed concrete, that's the SDC. And I think, 2 inches of gravel, 3 inches of gravel, and 2 inches of gravel for 5 inches of new material. On the access road that goes on starts at the south side of the jail. Goes west and then wraps around, goes north. But
Exhibits building.
thank you, and then, kind of, it will tie into the end of the concrete, the new concrete that the jail is pouring through the parking lot.
So kind of connected that loop in there. And then well, on the side, we put a culvert in, so we're raising the road, so the drainage was messed up, so we put a small culvert in. Just did that, and then, and we were talking about maybe after construction here, once a lot of the site plans gets done, maybe it'd be good to put another inch or two of gravel on top of it, kind of finish it off after
Right to
construction.
that cement, where it meets the cement on the west side of that exhibits building.
Yeah. However, there was some miscommunication as to the dollar amount that was approved, and
Yeah.
Commissioner Ross and I thought it was like 17,000, but that wasn't official. And I think it was only like 3 or 4.
4,700.
4,700. So the bill came in, which the bill's appropriate, that work was done. And our guys did the blading and whatever, put it down, but it was like, well. We would ask for approval to pay this invoice.
Yeah. In full. Which we took the money out of where?
Capital improvement.
Capital improvements.
So you would need to, is there more than just this coming, or is this it?
Well, officially, that's it for now. If we wanted to do another layer or two of gravel later, we could, we wouldn't have to. But
Should we just take care of this, take care of this one first and deal with the other one later? Okay. So we would need the difference. Out of capital improvements.
Okay.
And I would make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Ross, second by Commissioner Rusted. Any further questions on that topic? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? For me,
If we're done,
I think I'm done.
you think you're done?
Yeah,
Thank you.
paving job is starting up, couple days after Memorial Day.
On Eagle or on the other ones?
Sorry,
On Eagle Avenue or on 3 and 6?
5 and 6. Our mill and overlay project, yes. So that's exciting. They're getting done early in the year, which is nice. So,
That'll be good.
yeah, Eagle Avenue, we don't know yet. We have to bid it, see how the bids come in.
That's right.
Hopefully they come in okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Ford, what have you got for us?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Northeast Human Services has reduced their fleet. They reduced it from 24 to 19. So the first thing in front of you is amendment to their parking lot lease to reflect a decrease in reserved parking spaces. So pretty simple, just need a board approval and chair signature on the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rusted, Commissioner Peach, and any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question for the board. Last time renovations of the parking ramp happened. Good section of the parking ramp was closed, and so the board opted to waive parking ramp fees. Obviously, this has come up again amongst employees and department heads. The work is starting to begin June 3rd. That doesn't mean the ramp's gonna be closed. Work is starting June 3rd, and it's supposed to end, go through October and wrap up October 30th, October 31st. I don't have a schedule as to when parts of the ramp will be closed, but just checking with the commission to see if there's an appetite that when parts of the ramp do close and start interfering with parking, if the commission is able to waiving parking, reserve parking fees again, till project is over.
When did you say it would be? July first?
Yes, ma'am, it starts, so starting June 3rd, but that again, that doesn't mean the ramp section's gonna close, right? I don't know when that will happen, but it's in the bids, it's supposed to wrap up October 31st. So if it's okay,
I would just think that. You can't just close off certain parts of the ramp. So I would think you just waive the fees from the 3rd of June until the end of October.
you can, or
My recommendation is.
my recommendation would be, waiting until I get a schedule when the ramp will actually be impacted. I mean, it could be middle of July before a section of the ramp is closed. And that's a lot of revenue we're losing to go towards the rehab of the ramp. So my recommendation would be if the commission's amenable to it. When I have a schedule from the engineer, I can let Ms. Nelson know and that we could
Okay.
make it effective.
I would make that in the form of a motion then.
What's the form of your motion that?
Yeah, when Mr. Ford determines that the construction is actually gonna
When
start.
the ramp is closed.
Yeah,
And I'll be sure, or Mr. Gashesky will be sure to let employees know the impact once the schedule is out. We don't want to spring it on them at the last minute, of course.
Was there a second?
Second,
Okay.
you're second, Kimberly.
Okay, all right, any other questions of Mr. Ford? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Yeah.
Very last thing I have for the board, I sent out an email yesterday and then another follow-up this morning. Happy to, after 2 years of negotiating this OUSD program, we have the contract. And I appreciate the commission giving me some sense of urgency grace on it. It's $2.5 million that expires September 30th of this year, so there's a little urgency. So I'd be asking for, if the commission can do it, a special meeting tomorrow, if not Thursday, for the board to approve the IDIQ or the contract with Washington Headquarters Service, so that I can get it back to WHS. That will then trigger a task order agreement between the county and WHS. We can't get that until the IDIQ is approved. It shouldn't take long, the meeting itself,
so what are you looking at tomorrow?
whatever works for the
At
board, but
9?
tomorrow would be great. Tomorrow would be great. Yeah, I've been assured,
And you can Zoom.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
we could Zoom.
I can send it to.
Yeah, we'll Zoom it. I've been assured by WHS that if the county can provide the executed IDIQ, they will get us the task order by Friday. Which, of course, just fair disclosure, I'll then ask the chair for another special meeting when that hits my inbox, but.
We love special meetings.
Yeah.
We're talking about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning,
Do
yeah.
that?
Yep.
Mine's on Zoom, anytime.
Mr. Chair. I don't know if you need me present, I'm in the process of reviewing the contract at this time. I do have another commitment tomorrow morning, to be available by 9:30. I'm just at 8:30 involved in the job interview downstairs.
See, that's not true. I wonder if we can. We can address that.
I can come up here as soon as my other commitments are done, if there is questions that arise.
We're not gonna be here, we're gonna be.
Well-
So. In Mr. Ford's office.
Wherever the public notice is.
We just have it in this time later. And. Did you answer the phone?
At about 9:45, I'm done for the next 4 hours.
Oh.
Well. So we can, if someone else send them.
What,
Earlier, try to meeting.
Okay.
I don't have to be there.
7:30.
Well, it's 9:30.
8. Her interview is at 8:30.
Oh, 4.5 hours, you know?
Oh,
No, right at 8 o'clock. Since we can always get a meeting.
There's normal notice meeting. It'll be by Zoom, but this room won't be open.
We can use it, yeah, we'll
do it.
do it here.
Okay.
I'll just make sure IT gets the Zoom link out.
So
Yeah.
8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
That'd be my only concern.
8 o'clock,
You'll have to ask,
I'm busy, I'm doing crossing guard.
Oh.
We dropped my kids off at school, I'm like, that will be, never probably won't be.
Mr. Chair, I am bold enough to say if you go 9:30 and you have to be up by 9:45,
I think.
I think it's
It's
doable.
fair.
Okay, 9:30.
9:30.
All right.
Haley, we have 8:30, 9:30,
Oh, I think it's a 10. The
10?
next one's 10. It's 8:30
Okay.
and 10.
Okay, because there's 3 back to back, so I just wanted to be, okay.
all right.
Thank you,
so
though.
We'll convene at
9:30.
Okay.
And
if we can all be there for a while,
I'll be up here.
just to leave, that's fine.
I'll be on Zoom.
All right. Thank you, that's all I had. Yeah, committee reports.
No, you didn't get her name.
Just very briefly, yeah, there's one item under the state's attorney report, and that's the agreement between the city of Grand Forks and Grand Forks County. If you recall, a couple meetings ago, Public Health gave a presentation on the social detox program, moving over to the Housing Authority. And so this is just an agreement formalizing what was discussed at that prior meeting. I've reviewed the agreement, have no other concerns. The city has already reviewed it, signed off on it, so we just need a motion for the chair's signature.
So,
Second.
okay, motion by Commissioner Ross, did I think?
Yep, second by Kimberly.
Speedy.
Kimberly.
Okay. Second.
Right, maybe I'm all.
All in favor of the motion?
Mama,
signify by saying aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh.
I don't think that was correct. My apologies, I misspoke. This isn't pertaining to social detox, this is pertaining to the correctional center and the opioid.
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie.
So you approved that, but we need approval for the chair to sign the contract.
I would read that.
Yeah, all right, also so moved,
And I'll second that.
all right. So we now have a proper motion and second,
Second by Commissioner
Hagan.
Okay.
all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Anything else, Ms. Watson?
Nothing further, thank you.
Committee reports. Mr. Ross, let's start down there, you, Mr. Beats.
Just the Tuesday morning meetings out at the jail and youth assessment center. Updates on how things are going, what overages they're at, never mind. What other things are coming up? Their timeline, we went through the whole timeline and everything's moving along just fine. That's all.
The MPO is doing extensive studying on pedestrian crossings, of South 62nd near Maryville Road. So.
Well, the library did a really great job at doing what I was gonna talk about today, but there was also a study, I think I talked about it about 2 months ago. That had gone out, I think 300 people had done it, just a survey of the library. And I can get a hard copy or email to whoever wants to see it, but it was really cool to see some of the feedback from the community members talking about what the library means to them, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. What they were able to fill in and give feedback for, so, we're not really sure what we're gonna use it for in the next year or so, or how often we're gonna do that survey, but it was really nice to see the people that utilize the library, what they want. Went to the mayor's prayer breakfast in East Grand Forks, I guess 2 weeks ago now. That was really fun to see the two communities get together like that, and then I had the opportunity to visit with, so the EDC hosted community leaders last Tuesday. There were site selectors that had come to Grand Forks for a few days. And just had a little bit of a social hour just to visit with them and hear some feedback from them to the EDC the next morning, and then they'll be able to give us that information, just opportunities and things that Grand Forks could work on to grow business, so. Yeah.
The social services zone board met today, talked a little bit about staffing. There's a little bit of turnover going on, some retirements. And there's some internal hiring and some external hiring for staff positions. Other than that, that's basically what we covered.
Good. And this isn't being on a committee, but I attended groundbreaking at the Northwood Deaconess Health Center hospital project last week. It's $39 million. It's funded entirely by the health center. They're part of both Altrue and Sanford. And it's really kind of a gem of a hospital and nursing home in a small town. So it's great to see that get started. They got derailed during COVID and the prices went sky high, as we know how that affected the correctional center. But anyway, they're building now, we're starting. That's all I have on that, and any other correspondence?
Mr. Chairman, I have an unfinished business item to request a motion to replace an inspector for the Gilby Presbyterian Church. Susan Larson was appointed by you March 5th, and I need to replace her with Janet Todd. So I need a motion for that.
So moved, yours. I can't have any of you guys go first. Who's the most?
I think it's
All of them except for me.
All right. The motion was Commissioner Peets, the second was by Commissioner Hagan, as far as.
Perfect.
Right. So, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Everybody throw that up. Everybody else. So, and then.
You guys travel?
There was a
And then
travel.
last item is, Ms. Caditis is going to be traveling out of state and she has money in her budget to do so, but she needs a motion.
Okay.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Hagan and Commissioner second. All in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Vote. Yeah.
I second things next month.
Disney said it yet.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, that one.
Yeah.
Good on do. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, man. It's longer than I know.